Welcome to Bloody Good Horror, covering the best and worst of the horror genre since Halloween 2007. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Bloody Good Horror. An episode that you might call the last regular one of 2017.
Penultimate, Eric.
Yeah.
That's the word.
2017, the year our Lord Satan returned to Earth. It's been a weird one. My name's Eric.
I was more say like ascended to power. He's been around.
He's always been here. My name's Eric. I'm the host for this evening, where we will be discussing super dark times, bro. Not the bro part. I added that. Joining me tonight, first up, the business manager of Bloody Good Horror, coming to you from Manhattan, New York City. His name is John Schnars.
Home of Satan himself.
Yeah. It's the 90s night, John, so we're going to bring back that old El Paso fucking Tostitos.
New York City.
Yeah, whatever that was. No, it's Picante. Pace Picante. There you go. Next up on the
it was
show.
old El Paso, but you know. Either way.
Next up on the show, lover of all things 90s. I assume he was very excited by the sight of compact discs in this movie. He's got a little multimedia boner. Please welcome to the show, Joe.
A multimedia boner.
Yeah.
That was actually the title of my final project in college.
Yeah, there you go. Next up on the show, coming to you from Indiana, his name is Casey.
Hi-yo!
Hello. And last up tonight, joining us, Queen of the Books and Stuff at Bloody Good Horror, High Priestess of Smart Things. Her name is Cece.
Hello.
How's it going, Cece?
It's warmer here than it was last time, so I'm doing all right.
Yeah, it's like 50 here right now. I'm actually thinking about taking my sweatshirt off.
I was gonna say my parka is missing, so you know I'm back to the like 65 degrees.
How
How
does
are your house ghosts this week?
I think they're okay. Although
You're just hoping not to be assaulted during the podcast.
yes, you know I was hearing some awkward noises the past 2 mornings, and I'm going to naively ignore those. So I think we'll be okay.
I was gonna say, how do you feel now that BC officially made you internet famous with his gif of you getting the shit scared out of you by your door?
I have to say that GIF is amazing, and I think it should be used all the time. It's a good reaction.
My favorite part of the gif is like the door hits you in the back, and as you turn frightened, you whip your hood off. Like, I don't know, like that was part of your readying for your battle stance or whatever.
Well, I sent it to my family, and my mom was like, "Why the hell did you rip your parka hood off? Like, you know that a ghost's gonna like pull you by the hair." And I was like, "Oh, that's a good point." So,
yes,
She's looking out.
Yes, that's
I just
definitely.
figured it was a line of sight.
That's definitely the point that
because that hood is huge, but you know, I also need to keep the hair protected, I guess.
Also, for the record, what does your classy shirt say tonight?
Oh, it says "This party sucks."
Nice. Did you get that in on the Florida-Bama shore?
Yes, I did.
Oh,
Okay.
We need to talk about this, because Florida Bama has taken a steep nosedive the last couple of weeks.
What? I
Oh,
haven't
no.
watched the past episodes.
No, I'm way into it. Oh, I didn't watch last night.
Joe
No.
is so upset.
Yeah,
I am.
what's
Well,
wrong?
The last 2 episodes, we're talking about people's feelings. We're meeting
Oh,
people's
yeah.
moms.
Here-
Like, I don't
so,
need that shit.
Okay, very quickly.
Moms.
Listen, very quickly, and then we'll move on. Jersey Shore did do like family stuff, but it was at the end of the season. Like this is like, I did think it was a little presumptuous for episode 3 that I care to meet Courtney's mom, who, by the way, Schnars, her name is spelled Kortni.
Courtney spells her name the exact way my 6-year-old daughter would spell it. Just sound out the letters and write down what you hear.
Yeah.
Oh man.
You know what the
I'm a little
worst part?
disappointed that-
You know what the worst part about that whole thing is, Joe? Her mom's house is like 3 times the size of mine, at least.
Oh, it's a nice house.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, that's not what I want to see.
She lives in like a white trash mansion, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to watch this show and feel bad about yourself. You want to watch these disgusting degenerates like almost murder each other at dollar beer night.
Yeah. You may have really just gotten to the heart of the appeal of these shows, Joe.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
Okay.
I don't need this.
You know
empty-
what's-
How dare they?
You know it's
That's
not.
it.
You know it's not bullshit. I dare say it's impeachable, John. Unimpeachable.
Mm.
The methods with which you come up with our Bloody Good Horror top 10 of the year list?
Eric, it's time tested. That's what's most important. at
Mother
this point.
approved.
Mother approved. Yeah. Yeah, man. This is it. This is our penultimate episode, as we've been discussing. We have yet to nail down the final date for when we're going to record the next episode. Something like the 26th, 27th. It sounds like, but we're really excited. The lists are largely all completed at this point. I think we have them from everyone. It's more just like if anyone makes any last minute updates. A bunch of folks are scrambling to see some stuff.
Like me?
Eric submitted his list very early, we should say, because
first.
No, wait. Let's ask who submitted Eric's list very early.
No, I physically filled it out. Listen,
yeah,
I don't
get write up the movies too.
Don't
like,
get it
he wrote up his
twisted.
opinions.
Don't get it twisted. I could not have done this without Joe. I want to make sure his part in this is recognized. He's a little sensitive about it, but I did.
No, this helped me just as much as it helped you.
I did go and fill out my thing myself, and I wrote my little opinions. I didn't make Joe do that for me.
To be fair, I went in and made some edits to what I thought was. You're gonna be just as surprised by your final 10 list.
Joe's
as
like, no.
everybody else.
Joe's like, there's
Yeah.
too much punctuation in this description. I need to pull all that out.
I don't think you really like to get out this much.
Yeah, so they're done. They're in.
How's your list coming, John?
Joe, it's all up here. I'm pointing in my head for the listeners.
I will give him credit. I will not give him credit for showing up on time because, again, I think Mark's going to be here late. But he did actually, I think, go through a little marathon to try to pick up the big things that he missed. So I was impressed.
He did. Sophie was commenting earlier on our Slack channel that she like 5 or 6 movies in the last 2 days, and a couple of them I've seen and are pretty harrowing. So credit to her. She kind of some pretty dark shit.
some of the ones she saw, I could have just told her it's just skip that. It's fine.
Yeah,
I had good intentions of that, and then I can't even tell you which ones I watched at the moment, right up the top of my head. But the second one was not eligible. Was not going to be on the top 10 for sure, and that kind of killed the mood.
It's I have been cheating a little bit and looking at what other people have high that I haven't seen, and I'm kind of I've been targeting some of that stuff, so it's been helpful.
John, give me a little appetizer here. Tease me a little bit with what's interesting about this year's list that you can divulge to us?
Well, I haven't compared to last year. I want to go back and look. It feels like a lot of movies are getting a lot of there's a lot of diversity. So in the past, there's always been a bunch of movies that have gotten 1 or 2 votes, across the group. There's a lot of movies that are getting 3, 4, or even 5 people voting for them that aren't even going to scratch the top 10, which is pretty interesting.
So you're saying there's a lot of good diversity in this year's list.
Yeah, it's also, and I think we're going to talk about it obviously next week. It is a weird list. We've talked about it in the past. There's been mini sort of themes. We went through sort of ghost period. There's been some cult period. There's been different sort of subgenres that we've seen kind of predominate. It's all over the goddamn map, which is actually really interesting. And I think it's also a year where, and we've talked about it on the show over the course of the year, we're finally seeing a lot of indie shit that really wouldn't have gotten a lot of distribution or even a lot of attention in the past is now really climbing up the list because a lot more people are seeing it, which
easier,
is important. Not to
we've always kind of seen that stuff, but it's easier for everybody and to get more attention.
Well, and the problem we've had in the past is as we've gotten a bigger group and a bigger bunch of voters, we've had movies that we've seen for the podcast that very few other people have seen, and that tends to create some weird skews. But now that stuff is on Netflix, it's on Amazon Prime. There's even Shudder. We watched that Prevenge. That was a Shudder exclusive.
I wonder if do you think that's good though, because we skew so heavily to the theatrical that I wonder if maybe it's good to get other people in that are bringing a totally different.
No, well, I think it's creating more diversity in the list.
Right.
Let's put it that way. So
and less agreement.
No, I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I'm trying to I don't want to spoil anything too much.
Will there be fights?
No, but I would say this is also the most diversity there's been in sort of the OG crew. So I think we're gonna have some interesting. Like, there's some agreement, obviously, between say like the five of us, and
Well, that's what
we
happens.
should look at Cece. She's basically OG at this point, so we're gonna have to.
Oh,
I can start pulling her in.
That's
oh
what.
my night is so made.
There.
That's
But,
what happens when
but
Mark doesn't show up for half a year, Snores.
That's true. But like you said, he pounded through a bunch of stuff, and he's not that out of the loop. So yeah, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be an interesting show for
He's
sure.
dead to us. Let's just.
Yeah.
Did we mention that we are our year-end show? We're gonna post up for everybody to watch streaming, not just the patron subscribers.
Yeah, so well, it'll probably still be on YouTube because I hate Facebook live streaming and I don't want to do it. So, but we will probably we'll just take the
It's
YouTube.
aggressive.
We'll
but-
take the YouTube link and just give it out on our Facebook and Twitter. So keep an eye out for that. We know the day we're recording. We decided, right?
No.
I don't think we did.
I mean,
No,
Uh,
we haven't even discussed it yet.
we could
No.
do Wednesday if you guys want to do Wednesday.
all right, we probably shouldn't
I
hash
get
this out on the show.
Why
No,
not? Who
let's-
cares?
Let's do it.
Yeah,
whatever.
this
It-
conversation is never
Everyone pull
interesting.
up
It
your
will be-
calendar.
It will be next week, either Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, and it'll be out before New Year's Eve. So you can get into your bathtub with some Chardonnay and some
Ooh.
bubbles and give it a listen.
Pedicures on your toes.
Toes. Nice, Joe. Oh boy. Okay.
The one thing I'll tell you, because I was just looking really quick, we actually are going to start the year pretty slow next year, which is pretty different than it has been in the last couple of years. So far, there's only one theatrical release scheduled for
Isn't
January.
it Insidious?
Insidious 4,
Ugh.
the Ghost Key or Key World
The,
or
fur-
so, I
the
don't know, something
furthering.
sort of-
It's yeah. Remember, it's time to go further into the further than I've ever gone before.
Yeah, I maintain that might actually be a joke, and that we will all think it was pretty funny when we see
No.
it, but maybe not.
No,
I'm sure we'll think it's funny, but I don't
Yeah.
think it's a joke.
I'm gonna go further into this darkly lit studio setup than I ever have before. Do you see all the fog around me? You know, I don't think there's been a series, Snars, that I've done a harder turn on than the Insidious films.
Yeah, well, I mean, hard or like slow degrading to like now being completely anti,
Yeah.
you know?
Slow.
Because the first one
and-
we all felt pretty good about.
Yeah,
I was
I
not a
love the
fan.
first movie.
All right, except Joe. I shouldn't say we all. I guess, I don't want to presume.
Darth Maul.
That's exciting. As a part of the Schnars, I don't know if you have magical powers. Maybe you can take a look and just pull like a top 5 most anticipated of 2018 or something.
Seems like something
I'm-
we should discuss next week on our year-end show.
well, I think that's what he means.
I'm not right now, Joe. I'm planning on this show.
You know what, guys? I'm not feeling it tonight. I'm out. I'm going. Done.
Ever since you grew a
Joe, have
weird,
you had enough to drink tonight?
Joe-
No,
Joe-
I haven't had anything.
ever
Oh,
since you
no.
grew that like dirt patch goatee, you gotten all sullen and emo on me.
Oh my god.
Coming
How's your
out
hairline
firing.
doing, huh?
Listen, I have no control over that, Joe.
You little tiny bald man. Fuck yourself.
Oh, guys.
Oh
All right.
man.
We're so close to Christmas.
Hey, Joe.
The holidays.
Joe, speaking.
Exactly.
Joe, speaking of being angry and bitter, why don't you tell us what we're drinking tonight for the show?
Beer guts.
This week, I don't know if we mentioned it, but we are discussing a fine film called Super Dark Times about, I don't know, what happens when your buddy in high school murders someone. And, you know, what other beer do you want to drink than something from the good folks at Southern Tier Brewing Company that is all the way out in Lakewood, New York, which is pretty much the middle of nowhere. And this is their Dark Robust Porter, which is a delicious brew, especially this time of year. Porter, I've talked about these before. There's a real thin line between porters and stouts. I don't know if it's actually really clearly defined, but this one, as the name would suggest, is a super dark beer. No actual coffee in this, but it does kind of have that coffee-like flavor, which is why I really like this. It's very... It's not on the sweet side. It's a little more dry. Really no hops whatsoever in this, but you know, you get a lot of that roasted malt flavor, which you would expect from a porter, which I am a huge fan of. Southern Tier, I'm sure everybody's heard of them. They're the guys that do Pumpkin, and their IPAs are great, and everything they put out is really good. So you should be able to find this one in your neck of the woods. I'm pretty sure it's year round at this point, so you got no excuse. And yeah, I mean, it only comes in about, what is it, 5.8% alcohol, so not super high. And also, it's not one, like, it's pretty hefty, so you're not going to be like chugging these. So you can sip these all Christmas Day long, and then just drive out into the middle of the woods when you need some alone time, as I'm sure you do.
Wow.
Ooh.
To the Fortress of
That's
Solitude.
quite a holiday plan.
You guys don't have your annual "we need milk," and it turns out you just go sit in the parking lot and scream in the car.
Since becoming a father, I've 100% like gone to ran an errand and just sat in the parking lot and stared into space for like 10 minutes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That means you're doing it right.
Maybe not on a holiday. That's a little intense, but
That's when it starts to really hit home. STBCbeer.com is their website. And yeah, like I said, everything they put out is great, and they distribute pretty wide throughout the U.S. So check them out when you can, kids.
all right. That sounds good, Joe. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Rob.
This is a beer
Thank you.
recommendation, something you get here every week on the show. Let's take a quick break so that we can discuss Super Dark Times.
This is it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV. From the prime time, bitch. Main feature.
Our review of Super Dark Times, aka where we describe what scrambled porn is to Cece. Basically,
Not doing that.
Cece
Yes,
may
I
be
could
overly
not
familiar with
wait.
scrambled porn.
I was gonna say. I mean, I think we were still getting a little bit of scrambled porn in the late '80s, early '90s.
In the climate of America right now, I am not comfortable having that conversation with Cece.
I didn't say make her watch it. Like, what are you thinking is happening over here?
I'm pretty sure describing it still would fall under the Weinstein Treaty of 2017.
we definitely have not outlined our sort of like I don't know, like non-sexual harassment policies here at Bloody Good Horror. So
We made her watch the movie like it already happened.
it's definitely a gray area. I'm with Joe.
All
I'm
right.
with Joe on this.
right. All
I'm
right,
kidding.
John,
Let's talk about it.
2017, the year that words died.
Mm-hmm. They're not coming back, Eric. It's,
No.
It's
I've been giving it the old college try here, week in, week out, but
He's in the Hall of Presidents at Disney World. It's pretty much over at this
Oh.
point.
the tax plan has passed. It's over.
Yeah.
We're all done here.
Shut it down.
all right. Well, in this fantasy land that we're going to maintain here, John, words still mean something.
Okay.
You did, regardless of what's happening day to day, you did still go to Duke. I want that to be reflected on the record.
We should get back to that. Yes.
So you've got that going for you, which is good, right?
Uh-huh.
Do you like donate to Duke, John?
Yeah, I have.
So you can go back and like use the pool if you want.
Unclear.
Oh.
I could show up and just see what they did.
You could attend the Klan rallies though if you wanted.
Oh boy.
Come on. Come on.
Those are open for everyone.
Come on.
Well, right, Joe, you wouldn't
Well,
want to.
not everyone.
Oh,
Hey,
God.
Joe, you wouldn't
We're-
want to. You
we're all pure under the sheets, all right, guys?
yeah. Hey, John,
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I don't
yeah.
remember where this was going, so please bring us the word of the day.
Okay, guys. All joking aside, today's word is manslaughter. Manslaughther. Manslaughter is the crime of killing a human being without malice aforethought. Aforethought being an interesting word that I don't know if I've ever seen that written out before. Or otherwise, in circumstances not amounting to murder. So yeah, manslaughter. Don't have a definite or an origin here, but I think you can probably put it together where they came up with this one. But yeah, I thought it was an interesting word for this week. If anyone's watched a lot of Law and Order, you're obviously going to be familiar with manslaughter as well. So yeah, manslaughter.
Was it Manslaughter your club name in college also, Jim?
Joe, I'm not going to touch that. Let's move on.
You know, I've always found manslaughter to be like, it's just a very good word. It's so like visceral.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, sure.
Manslaughter.
I agree. It's a good word.
Slaughter, man. That's like good work, John. Nice work.
Thank you, guys.
I like
Thank
how
you.
Joe tried to undercut you though with the beer because he gave like the perfect 4-word synopsis to the movie to start it off, just to like undercut your.
He often does throw a pretty good synopsis in there, and then I have to kind of refer back to or kind of go from there.
Right.
Which I appreciate.
Sure. Expand on it for 15 to 20 minutes.
Hey guys, a stranger just joined us. I don't know who this is.
Hey!
Are you guys done? You done already?
He's a stranger. He looks.
Are you done here?
I like this atmospheric, blue hue you have going on. It's very alien-esque.
He's
You like that?
hiding.
And you like my Dr. Caligari ceiling I've got going on? behind me?
Lit only by the light of his computer monitor.
Your Tim
Hey, Mark,
Burton.
you want to go play with my katana in the field?
Jesus.
Watch your neck.
All
Protect
right,
your neck.
John Schnars,
Yes, Eric.
tell me about this movie.
Super Dark Times is the directorial debut of Kevin Phillips from a screenplay by Ben Collins and Luke Piotrowski, something like that. So it's a really interesting one. I mean, we're going to cover a lot of ground here, I have a feeling. In a lot of ways, it's a really pretty simple plot. So you have two friends, Zach and Josh. They're pretty sort of like stereotypical or prototypical high school students. They live in 1996 in upstate New York. Did anyone else pick up on that?
No. Where did you even see that?
That is according to the Wikipedia page. So when we were
I
watching
mean, it's got that vibe.
Yeah.
so I was thinking Pacific Northwest for some reason, but like, yeah, totally, I'm not shocked. But yeah, so they're two high school students. They're best friends.
You know
They're
what?
kinda like
You know what upstate New York is, John?
the capital region.
That's right.
The capital region.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Oh, it was filmed in Kingston, New York.
No, oh, okay, that's not really upstate. That's like mid-state.
It's not far from like Poughkeepsie.
Right by the beach.
Yeah, so you got these two students or two high school students. They're definitely sort of not early puberty, but they're going through that sort of like rougher time where you're like thinking about your first girlfriend and watching scramble porn. I mean, as discussed previously. Maybe Mark can tell us about that now that he's joined.
Well, can you just go through all the stages of puberty, John? I'm really interested. to
Yeah,
hear what you have to
tell
say.
me more about these changes that we all went through.
Oh, guys. We should come back to and talk about Big Mouth at some point. It's another pubescent high school show. It's some tie-ins here.
I was gonna say that was a stage of puberty.
Big
All right.
mouth.
We all remember when we got the big mouth.
So they're just like two kids kicking around their town. And the action of the film really centers around this day where they run into kind of, I don't know what you would call him. He's not really like a nerd. He's kind of like just a kind of overall disliked guy from their
I think
class.
it's safe to say that everybody had one of these kids in their life.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
But like, how would you describe this person?
Sloppy.
You know-
Socially awkward, definitely,
Well,
right?
yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
trying to think of the movie or the in Hot Tub Time Machine, and they're talking about the Rob Corddry character, and they're trying to describe. They're like, oh, the woman in the hospital's like, are you related to him? And the guy's like, no, it's like he's the asshole, but he's our asshole.
Mhm.
It's like
But,
that
I
may be
mean,
even a little tighter than these people are. Like,
Yeah.
you know the way you
He-
are when you're a teenager, though. Kids kind of come in and out of your orbit. It's like you have your close friends, and then you kind of have these like wider circles of people that sometimes end up together.
Well, yeah, there's people in your neighborhood. Like he's
Yeah,
like a
right.
guy from their neighborhood, and they're like out riding bikes and kind of like traversing their neighborhood, and they run into this guy who's this just he's not even that I mean, he is an asshole. It was funny to me how much. I mean, we can get into it. The character was like perfectly drawn because he like swears too much, but he also like talks too loud, and it's just like
He's
overly
just fucking.
great.
He's just
He's
annoying.
intense.
Yeah.
There's just a
Yeah.
lot going on there.
And so, but he's hanging out with a middle schooler, and so the four of them are kind of like out, like hanging around. They go back to Josh's house. Josh has an older brother. They're kind of exploring his room, mainly to look at like pictures of naked or semi-clothed chicks, which are kind of like plastered all over. But they also then finds some weed, and Josh pulls out a katana, and they're they're basically like, yeah, sorry, they're basically just like, let's let's take this out. They want to, I think, slash milk
It's like the X-rated version of Buzz's trunk in Home Alone, basically.
Yeah.
Buzz's girlfriend. Woof.
So
But
they,
they're
they
like
take-
they're fucking around with milk cartons filled with water and chopping them in half and like
yeah, and they're chopping them up, and they're having kind of like this happy-go-lucky good time with this mixed group of people, and it's revealed that Daryl, who's the character that is kind of the weird, just like off-kilter guy, has taken this weed that they found in the brother's room from his room, and it's not so much that the brother's gonna like come back and find it. The brother's in the Marines. He hasn't been around in a long time, but Josh gets like pretty upset about
he
it.
crosses a
and-
line.
Yeah, and they start to kind of fight, and there's like name calling and yada yada. And the long story short is that there's this katana that's out there, and as they're fighting, it kind of gets in between them, and Josh essentially stabs Daryl through the neck and kills him. I mean, it's not like an immediate kill, but they have
It's a
this
struggle.
moment. Yeah, there's a struggle where he's crawling around, he's trying to run around, they're chasing him down, and the three remaining kids, Josh and Zach, and then this middle schooler, they look at each other and they're like, we got to hide his body. Like they basically are all kind of having a nervous breakdown together, and they decide they have to hide his body, and they throw the sword down in the stump of a tree, and then they just get the hell out of there. And the rest of the film is really about them struggling to sort of deal with this post-traumatic stress, essentially, of what they've
Yeah.
done, and each of them kind of deals with it in their own way. It really drives a wedge between Zach and Josh, and into that same space is inserted this girl Allison, who Josh is sort of like secretly in love with or has a crush on. She actually likes Zach, and they start to kind of not date, but like kind of middle school date where you're like talking on the phone
Holding
and that kind of
hands.
nonsense.
I don't know that.
Yeah.
film.
So yeah, but I mean that's it, right? Like the rest of the film is really about sort of the unraveling of their friendship, and really about like the super dark times that then ensue post this
Yeah.
tragic event.
It's an
Poignant.
aptly titled film.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Mark,
Super dark times indeed.
you made it for the review, buddy. I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, that
Nice-
happens.
Nice to have you
Sometime.
here. Why don't you
It's
tell
good
us
to be here.
what you thought of this?
Man, I thought that this movie, John already kind of mentioned it, but I thought this movie was like really well written to the point where like the characters that you thought were supposed to be annoying and off-putting were like were so off-putting in a way that was just like incredibly realistic.
Authentic, yeah.
Authentic, yeah, is a good word. And this thing feels very 90s in terms of atmosphere. It's just really, to me, like really well drawn, really well directed, really well written. It reminds me almost of a movie, and this is going to throw you guys a little bit, but it reminded me a little bit of Kill List. Do you guys remember that movie that we watched?
Oh yeah,
way back?
that's one
way
of my
back when?
faves.
It's interesting because it's like I feel like Kill List had that same sort of like low key, super well written quality to it, even though obviously very different subject matter. So I thought this was a really good movie. I don't know, like that I would say that I loved it just because it's pretty low key. But overall, I thought it was really worthwhile, and I'm glad we got a chance to watch it.
Joe.
Yeah, I agree with Mark. I think growing up in the same time period that this takes place and being around the same age as these youngsters, or maybe a little older, I mean, I thought it was really kind of relatable, the dynamic between the gentlemen. I mean, right down it's we joked around about it, but I mean, like literally, like sitting in a room trying to watch like scrambled porn, like that's straight out of probably most of our childhood,
Yeah.
with the exception of CC.
I did not do that.
I mean, I did listen to Loveline,
Uh,
on DL.
I used to watch.
Love Line.
Yeah. I
used to
What do you mean
watch-
on the DL. Everyone listened to Love Line.
No, I meant in my household. Like
I've
I
got
wasn't trying
this,
to like watch scrambled porn. I was trying to listen to Loveline.
I've
Yeah.
got this lump and I don't know what it
That's-
is.
Yeah.
That's exactly the same thing, yeah, CC. Listening to a
I'm
broadcast
sorry.
radio show is the exact same thing as three teenage boys sitting in a room trying to look at a boob through a.
Well, I have my own boobs to look at,
Yeah.
so yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
have to like
Well,
try and figure out what
that's
it
a good
looked
point.
like.
Unfortunately,
Fair
CC,
point.
so did I. Okay.
Oh.
Is this
but
gonna
anyway,
be? Is this gonna be one of those episodes where we get some new Joe layers?
I assume when John said middle school dating, he meant driving a girl to the mall so she can get a gift for her boyfriend. That's what you were
I'm
getting
not
at,
gonna
right?
be able to handle this.
Shit.
But anyway, I mean,
Super
it's
dark times.
Yeah.
it's
Yep.
it's a slow build for sure. But I mean, the tension, specifically at the end, I think is super rewarding and like really like to the point of nauseating, where
Yeah.
you know we kind of get to the climax of this, and like the characters along the way, I found it pretty fascinating. I ended up really liking this a lot. I'm surprised that Eric did not say that what's his name, the kid with the floppy hair did look like a young John, because that was the first thing I thought.
Oh, you think so? Huh.
I think so, yeah. Especially
Schnars, do you have any
God.
picks from this era we could compare?
I mean, I can probably dig some.
Yeah, why
up,
don't you do
so.
that? Cece,
Work
what
on it.
Cece, what do you think of this?
I had watched the trailer beforehand a while ago and heard a little bit of buzz about it, so I was actually really looking forward to seeing it. I don't know that I don't know that I enjoyed it. It definitely didn't make my top 10. And though it's a super well done movie and I really like the character development and the slow atmospheric burn that we're all talking about really helps the movie, I think that you've definitely got to be in the headspace, or like you've got to prepare yourself to watch a movie like this. And I don't know, I guess I wasn't into it because it I don't know, the slow burn kind of took away from me figuring out what was going to happen. And like I said over email, if you start your movie stomping an animal, I'm pretty much automatically like, I don't like this movie.
I mean, it's not Cannibal Holocaust. It didn't like really murder the deer.
But that's what I mean. It sets a tone for your movie. Look, I mean, I can see like a mouse squeak and start crying. So if you're literally curb stomping an animal in the cafeteria of a high school,
First of all, there was not a curb.
Yeah.
Here's my question. See, it's totally fair. My question is, if they just shot it in the cafeteria, would you have like been less upset about that?
No, I still would have been upset. But
Alright.
that's not.
I mean,
the
it's a
point.
deer. They don't have souls. Everybody
That's
knows
true.
that.
It was a moose. But no, I mean, overall, I think that the character development and kind of this super close thesis on isolation in the early 90s, it was really fascinating, but it just didn't really grab my attention at all.
John Schnars.
Yeah, I think I really like this movie a lot. Like I like hesitate to say I loved it, but one thing, and this is something I wanted to ask Cece about, because I actually do think this movie is like it's told from a very male perspective.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure.
And like I mean, we're joking
Finally.
about scrambled porn, obviously, but
Right.
like this is in some ways like it was remarkable to me how real this felt to me, and like
Yes,
how
yeah.
like Joe mentioned, like this, I felt like almost like uncomfortable with how relatable this was to my experience of growing up.
Right.
Like riding bikes around, like hanging out with rando
Trying
kids
to-
in the
Trying
neighborhood.
But
to hide the
even
katana you
down-
accidentally killed somebody with.
No.
Even down to the awkwardness of the interactions and the
Mhm.
sort of like early puberty stuff, like painfully accurate for me. Just
I mean,
being
I
like,
was
oh,
like
God.
way more suave with the ladies, obviously, at this point.
Yeah.
But like, just
Obvi. No, I think that's a really good point to bring up though, because I really felt like I don't watch very many movies where I immediately feel like an outsider, and I thoroughly felt like an outsider watching something that I was trying to say, okay, like, am I gonna understand what's going on now, or like why these feelings are happening? So I think that you're right, that the male perspective and
It's so. I mean, it's not just that it's a movie about dudes. It's a movie
No.
that's like deeply about the male adolescent experience.
Sure,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
And so I think that's totally valid. And like, to be fair, I watched Prevenge last week and was like zoning out the whole time. So it's like,
it's really funny to see these back to back.
I know.
Because I
It is.
feel like I
It's-
loved
yeah.
Prevenge and everyone else was like, it's okay. But I think that it's a good pairing for sure.
yeah.
I did like, I'll just say like really quick, and I know obviously we're gonna get into it, but like I actually thought the relationship between the main character and then the Allison character, like I liked that she wasn't like out of his
I thought
league. Like
she
it
was
felt
Right.
believable.
yeah,
Like
I thought that whole character and her performance was just like magnetic.
yeah, it was really
Yeah.
really
Well,
good.
and it wasn't, I mean, one thing too, it wasn't super like fetishized. I think that's the,
Mhm.
like, it was very
Yeah.
much like a realistic, kind of sweet, but like also awkward relationship. And I think that that's what made it feel
Well, it felt like a
so
real
natural.
adolescent relationship of
Yeah,
that
it was that
age.
puppy love, that like first
Yeah.
that first crush on the girl next door or down the street that
Yeah.
you can barely have a conversation with. So I thought that duo was really really
Although I will say I
interesting.
can't ever remember a girl just walking up and being like, "Hey, I like you. Let's hold hands."
Yeah,
Me
I
either,
mean,
man.
all right.
Me
Well,
either.
I
That's
mean,
about
she
the-
had to help
John
drive the
can.
plot a little bit.
John can. But
John
yeah,
remembers.
so I will go so far, Schnars, as to say that I loved this movie. In fact, it shot its way midway up my top 10 list. Like, there's two kind of concurrent threads that really made this connect with me, and the one is the thing we've been talking about is the almost painful authenticity, and it's like it's everything about the movie. It's from stuff like the annoying fat kid character in the beginning, where just like, God damn it, I had a friend like that, or you know the technology, right? The video game stuff, the cordless phone with the pull out like antenna, or the CD stuff like that. But then down to those like really painfully authentic adolescent experiences. That stuff connected with me so much. I mean, like literally, these people were the same age as
And
me.
living in the capital region.
Yeah, there you go,
know.
John. Well, Kingston, I don't know. But no, and then concurrently, like this film, I found this film so tense, and I think Joe said something like this, but like by the end of the movie, my stomach was like upset because I was so nervous about what was happening, and that started really from the beginning. Like the first 10 minutes are really funny. I found them funny, like these kids just telling each other to go fuck themselves, and they're just like having these funny, like awkward adolescent kid interactions, and then shit gets real serious, real fast.
Would you say that it gets super dark?
Yeah,
At
and
times.
but then it's like immediately.
Wow, guys, the 1-2.
Immediately, even that scene where the kid gets killed, it plays out the way that I feel like that scene, like, I don't know, I recognize the way that as an adolescent, right, you're sort of like not in control of your body, you're not in control of your mind. And I think like under the surface, a lot of this movie is just about the kind of freight train of puberty and sort of what that causes you to be like. But like you can see it felt so genuine the way that scene slowly tumbles out of control, but it's slow, right? It's like this slow interaction between the two kids that ends in this death, and it's like, holy shit! It just feels so
unlike something
believable.
like we need to talk about Kevin, which is very much
Mhm.
about a kid who's like totally disturbed. This is almost like you're watching this like awkward slap fight, and you're like, oh, of course they fell on the sword. Like that makes sense, and seems
Yeah.
like something
Yeah.
that could
Because
totally
now,
happen.
as an adult, I'd be like, hey, dipshit, don't play with a sword. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
you're a teenager. You don't like that's you know.
Eric, yeah, swords are like inherently cool. Is the problem?
I also
so
think-
there's a tension there.
That's true. I also
John-
think, and
Let
we'll
it be known, John is pro sword.
we'll get to Casey here in a second. There's this other thread that, so it's like interesting, right? I'm relating to all this stuff, but I also deeply related to this mother character who she's like a single mom and she's just trying to take care of her son. She's a really sweet lady. You can tell she like really loves her son. And she knows something is going on, but it's that parent thing, right? You're working your full-time job, you're cooking dinner, you have your own distractions. She's a single mom and like she can't see it because why would you'd never see that, right? You'd never expect that. But she has enough intuition to know something is wrong. And there are these great, really emotional moments where she is kind of literally and figuratively reaching out to him to try to make a connection and kind of let him know that she's there for him, but also with this knowledge of like she can't be there for him because at that age they have to kind of start fending for themselves. I don't know, like there's so many layers to that relationship I just found very kind of deeply affecting. And so the whole thing is just like, and that's like to Cece's point, like you have to be in the mindset for this movie
Mhm.
because it's fucking dark and relentless and just kind of plotting as it goes through. So yeah, I really love this movie. It really, really affected me pretty deeply. I think. Casey, what'd you think about this?
I liked it.
Hot.
No, I like this movie a lot. This movie for me, there's not a whole lot different that I can say that everybody else hasn't already said, but I would say that I had a hard time with the start of this movie. I started it once over the weekend. It didn't grab me in I watched it for like 10 minutes. It didn't grab me right away. I sat down to watch it again last night, and I struggled a little bit at the beginning, but I knew I needed to get through it. I say this because we do have a tweet coming up later with somebody asking about this movie because they talked about how they fell asleep in the first 20 minutes. This movie's got a rocky start, but once it gets its feet under it and it starts rolling, that's when it starts to get really good. And the whole thing relies on its characters, which I think is once you can get yourself sucked into those characters and relate to them, that's when it's got a hold of you, and it keeps a hold of you throughout the whole movie. So it's kind of an emotional roller coaster.
I think that the first 20 minutes, it's pretty slice of life kind of stuff, which
Yeah.
if you're not fully kind of into it, I could see it losing you. But I also think it's like really beautiful. It's starting with these like slow kind of tracking shots looking up at dead trees, and it's a lot of what I thought was like really good scene setting.
It does.
Yeah.
Well, and it sets up the relationship. There's a lot of, I mean, I can't even call all of them to mind right now, but it felt like there was a lot of sort of like visual metaphor being played with. I'll say one thing, one like sort of ridiculous thing. So there's an app that I installed on my computer that it's called Flux. Has anybody heard this? It basically like changes the
It's a
color.
scrambled porn app.
Yeah, it scrambles your screen, and it's like watching scramble. No,
I guarantee you, something like that is out
the
there.
only way John can get an erection.
No,
I don't know.
it changes. So like
It's the way I was brought up, and it's the only way I can get there.
basically it basically makes it so your screen goes from blue to like orange light or blue to yellow light. Like I don't know, Eric probably knows
It's
a little
like
bit
your
about this,
iPhone.
but yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it does it for your computer. Anyway, I'm watching this and I'm like, wow, the lighting in this movie is so different. They make some like really unique choices with the lighting. This is for like the first 30 minutes. And
That's
then finally
really
I'm
funny.
like, oh fuck, I never set the flux thing to pause. So like then I reset it. But there is a lot of like there's a lot of scene setting. There's a lot of like I don't know, sort of like emotional setting that goes on in that beginning. Really kind of grounding you in who these guys are and like where they fit in the high school hierarchy. So
Well, and again, like, because I sort of
20 minutes is probably over generous.
No, I actually think that's at least. It felt like I remember looking at the clock and kind of wondering when dark times are going to happen.
It's fair because I think, and Eric, you kind of brought it up, and I mentioned it too. Like that tension at the end, I think it hits you a lot harder because parts of this are so like the tone is very like somber and it's a very sort of deep movie, and then you get to this climax at the end and it's like stuff really picks up quickly, and that's I think that's why it affected me so much watching. It's because it does have that tone throughout, and then it takes it slowly builds throughout the movie, but it really isn't until the end where it kind of like clicks when we're kind of getting into like the climax of this.
Well, we're jumping the gun here.
Oh, we're gonna say Casey.
I was gonna say we're jumping the gun here, but to talk about that ending and how effective it was for me, it comes down to we don't have an evil presence that we're dealing here with this movie like we normally would in a horror movie. There's not some kind of unbridled evil that's going crazy that we know is the obvious bad guy. There's not really a bad guy per se until the very end of this movie, and it doesn't really kind of take that turn until the very end. So once it does, we've already kind of fall in love with all of these characters, and to see it's kind of heartbreaking more than anything. So it's kind of a weird feeling, and it feels like it's affecting you more because you've got kind of like the oh god, that I feel so bad for everybody.
Well, because from the
feeling going on top of it.
Because from the beginning, you're like their lives are ruined. Like I don't like you.
Right.
You're sort of you're trying to work it out in your head as you're going along, how this might potentially end up okay. And like
there's no good outcome.
Right,
there's
at
no
some
way.
point
Yeah.
at some point, even the character you really like, who's like the male lead, it's like I just don't see how this isn't going to end really badly for him. And then
Well, and part of that, I mean, one of the things that might make this a challenging watch for someone is the thing that makes it in my opinion, such a high quality film is like there is a little bit of freaking out about what happens initially, and then they kind of just like go about their lives, but there's no like crazy fits of paranoia, like screaming at each other, whatever. They're all just kind of like going through this like low key you know, they're just going through their weird, awkward lives with this just like undercurrent of dread over
Well,
the whole
I
thing,
think
which I think
Schnars-
is just really interesting.
Go ahead, Cece.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think that really, magnifies that feeling of isolation that you kind of get this, taste of in the beginning of the movie, and it's something, you think that it would this accidental death would bring these friends closer, and they would want to, cover for each other, and it would become a bigger deal that way. But in turn, it really splits all of them further apart and just makes it that much worse for each individual person. So I think that that's a really interesting play on that normal, like, fit of paranoia and this like freak out that you would normally get in a lot of other movies.
Well, I think Schnars, I think you nailed it. Like it's literally PTSD that we're watching unfold. It's like it's affecting the two characters in different ways. But literally, our main character, like he breaks from reality. Like he can't sleep.
Yeah.
He starts taking cold medicine. He's literally like hallucinating, dreaming at one point, and like because
the taking of cold medicine, that's also like an adolescent thing.
No, but he's
Like,
doing
I think
it.
that's more Cesar.
But he's doing it
Fussing on
because he literally he's like, I haven't slept for 48 hours. Like that's
Right.
and it's like I think you're watching them both break down, and they're not even by the end they're not even capable of like functioning in society anymore, and that's kind of what makes the whole thing kind of come to a head.
Well, it's even extra. It's even extra heartbreaking though, watching it as an adult, where you're watching these kids and you're watching all this breaking down and watching how it's affecting them and they're unraveling, and deep inside that it didn't have to be like that, because if they would have just went to the authorities in the beginning and explained the accident, it would not have turned out as bad as it did.
I think it's also like it's interesting that it's set in this time period because it's like pre CSI, and that sort of if this movie was set today, the immediate concern would be like our fingerprints are all over everything, and we're gonna get caught, and they're gonna find this guy within 20 minutes. Like, it's interesting. I forgot who mentioned it, but like the fact that like these kids just kind of go back about their daily lives. I mean, not so much the main character because he's obviously really struggling, but the other two for sure. Like, I think it's interesting that we're set in this time period, and I think that's really what kind of made the movie, that you could have this feel because it was set in like a 96.
Yeah. That's interesting. That was one of the questions I had, was like, why set it at this time? I mean, it actually like really contributes to my enjoyment of the film, because again, if you set it during this time and it doesn't work, like, we're gonna notice the most of anyone. Like, we were literally in high school. Or
well,
like
I mean,
just starting high school.
my guess would be whoever wrote it, that's what they knew. Right?
Well, and I mean, a lot of the kind of like stuff I was reading about the movie beforehand talks about that it's set in a pre-Columbine time period, and I wonder if that verbiage is used because these kids start acting so strange, and not that this can still totally happen today, and I don't mean that at all, but like you have more like school counselors, and you have more like parents looking into like what their children are doing. So it's a really interesting way to approach this, where you don't have social media, you don't have CSI or like these shows that are kind of showing you what could happen. It's a very organic domino effect of just messed up stuff.
Things weren't under such a microscope back at that time.
And if it was today, I mean, the parents have find my phone or whatever, and they have their kids drop a pin when they go out.
Yeah.
They're going to ping their phone. They're going to find them when they don't show up. Because I remember thinking that partway through this movie, like when they went back to school the next day, and what's running through my mind is, when are they going to notice that this Daryl kid's not coming back to school?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure everybody...
it would have taken them a day at least.
I'm sure everybody just tried to enjoy it for a day before they started questioning it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, nobody wanted Daryl to come back. Let's be
There's like interesting undercurrent here. I wish I had like my CC degree in symbology, because I feel like this movie is about puberty in a lot of ways, but I think that the way that the female lead comes into this guy's life is really important, like the timing especially. Like, she is not even there as a romantic interest until it's literally the day this kid gets murdered. He goes home and she's at his house, and then the next thing you know, they're in the bedroom, and they're like necking sort of, or like they're like holding hands, but he's freaking the fuck out because A, his friend just died, and B, he just broke his arm punching a wall. And so, like, I feel like that timing is really important.
Mhm.
Well, so he had, I mean, the timing is definitely important narratively. Like he does mention at one point in the very beginning that they're like, because they're talking about, they're like going through the yearbook and like talking about all the girls, obviously, and he mentions at that point like, hey, you know, like, oh yeah, like we're friends or something, like whatever, like
Yeah.
I've hung out or something like that. And then they also like do the whole like stop by our house and yell penis, which is like
that was great.
the most 90s thing that's I've like
He said,
literally
"Shut
that was
up."
the moment. Yeah, I was like, wow, this movie is fucking genius. Like, how did they get that?
John still does that in New York City.
John's like, were they watching me?
I'm considering starting it up again. Mark.
John immediately went to
John
his.
goes out and like takes his wife's hand. He's like, "That's how we met."
John went to his
Storm.
bed to make sure somebody hadn't stolen his diary.
Oh my
John
god.
Schnars
I
and the
still remember the
screaming
night I
penis.
went outside your house and yelled penis.
That's one of those things that.
Do you guys
like,
remember
I look
do you ever
back on it,
play
I'm
the?
like, wow, that was the dumbest thing ever. And then I saw this and I was like, ah, so nostalgic.
Well, I remember it was
You know?
the
Pen 15 Club, y'all.
the penis game where you each have to yell it increasingly louder.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun.
Oh yeah, no, I said they just skipped the.
They went
beginning
right
part.
to the
Eric,
loud one.
Eric, thank you for the.
No, I'm
recap
just
of the
saying.
rules of the penis game.
Listen, John. Listen, Mark.
That's
they weren't.
what you guys called the penis game? Because it was way different for me.
No, not Ookie Cookie Joe.
Oh, god.
I mean, different for me and my guidance counselor. Stop. It was high school. Mr. Reynolds.
No, don't do that.
You're gonna have make Eric bust out the slide whistle.
No, I don't
I'm
care.
sure he's dead.
I
by
don't
now.
care about Mr.
But,
Reynolds.
uh,
I know. Any other scenes that really stood out to you guys?
Sorry, I just want to go back to the yearbook. There was an awesome random goth in the yearbook, which I thought was fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Very
I mean,
nice.
fairly accurate.
You
Fairly
mentioned it, Eric, but I really like the dynamics between the mother and the son as well. Like, I think in this type of movie, it easily could have been like the overbearing mother or, you know, the loner kid who doesn't want to talk to his parents. But it was actually like a very sweet relationship between those two. Like, you know,
Yeah.
she was doing the best she can.
And again, it's like
Yeah.
I don't know how much like 15 years ago or like 10 years ago I would have like maybe I'm just relating to her because I'm older and I have a child, but like yeah, I think there is something in the portrayal too where she's not just like that, like
Yeah.
nagging at
Yeah,
him.
I think they did a lot to make her not like the stereotypical.
Like, and Joe,
quote,
she's
unquote,
always drinking a
bully
beer after your own heart.
Just trying to get by, man.
Yeah.
She knows.
I feel like
They,
the
I
beer
mean, I
beer is
really
a very
liked her, too, with the
specific
girl show.
the beer is a very specific choice though, right? Because when he walks in and she's drinking a beer, that's exactly like you're joking, Joe, but you're totally right. That's like I'm just trying to fucking get through this day, man. Like
Yeah.
like
a-
wine
Well,
is
but it's
different. If
also
she
an
was drinking
interesting
wine, it'd
take
be
that-
like, you know, go ahead.
Right. Yeah.
The beer's the working lady's relaxation at the end of the day.
Oh, it's
I mean,
Kingston.
I agree on the mom and son's relationship too, and to me, it helped add to the feelings at the end because for me, sitting there at the end, watching them go through there, everything that's running through my mind was, "Oh God, what's going to happen now?" They know that the other kid did most of it, but what about Daryl? And what does this kid say? And you know that kid's mom's going to be heartbroken because she cared for him, and everything spiraled out of control like that, and his life's fucked.
Yeah.
When you're born in Kingston, New York, your life's already fucked.
Well, you know, and like the kid's missing, the other kid's missing, and the mom keeps kind of saying like, "Don't go too far from the house," and it's like, just those impotent things you say as a parent to try to keep your kids safe that don't really mean it. You know, like my mother always saying, "Be careful when I left the house." It's like fucking what? That doesn't do anything, but it makes you feel better to say it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm going to play with a katana. Leave me alone.
It's funny though too because I now say that to my 17-year-old every time she leaves, and
Yeah.
she
I
rolls her
know.
eyes bigger than life every
yeah,
time.
Yeah, I know, but there's something so, again, like just genuine about that interaction and that relationship.
Yeah. And I mean, I know we've kind of mentioned it, and you specifically mentioned it, Eric, but I really do appreciate that, you know, the love interest in this movie is more of an archetypical nurturer in that she's there as this support system rather than, you know, a romantic lead, because it highlights how deep this runs for the main character. And I think that she herself is a very defined character, but I also appreciate that she's a mirror for the main character in a way too.
Yeah,
I noticed there was no nurture as well. I picked up on that.
No, yeah, I like the idea of them being mirrors. Like they are very alike in
Yeah.
their mannerisms, but also it seemed like their values. Like they both
Right.
sort of, they're good kids.
Well, I like the
Other than the covering up the murder part.
Wow.
even the little
Y'all
like
make
love
mistakes.
the love triangle they set up with her and the other two boys felt super realistic too. When you have two best friends and they end up falling for the same girl, and it gets weird and it gets kind of heated. They don't know how to handle it, and you had that. It felt typical, but then they have this whole death thing that they're hiding, going over the top of it too.
Well, and I like that
As-
they didn't try to emphasize her like being this, like an
Yeah.
instigator between the two friends. Like she's like, I know that your friend likes me, but I like you. Like, let's figure out like I'm sorry I came between you two. So I appreciate that it's still more focused on the boys and their relationship rather than this love triangle between them.
Yeah, but the point is, it still feels fairly accurate for
Oh,
something
right,
that's
for
going
sure.
on at that age too. So it seems realistic, which is a nice twist.
One of the scenes I
Mhm.
wanted to bring up that I just thought was really intense was when he goes back to the crime scene, and like he has this moment where he gets there and he sees that the bodies, like the leaves, aren't on it anymore, and it's been hacked up. I can't remember, was that a dream or not?
No, that was real.
But it's like
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
intense, and the look on his face, and like he's just so determined to get over there, and he throws his bike down, and he gets, and then he's just like stopped
Well,
dead in his
that's-
tracks
yeah.
when he sees the body.
That ends up becoming kind of the instigating event for the rest of the film,
Right, 'cause
because
he- yeah,
it's
yeah.
when he realizes that like Josh is.
He's gone.
He basically like assumes that Josh is definitely
Because the
Did-
katana's also gone at that point.
Did anybody
Yeah.
notice that when he calls, so the other kid that's involved that was with Josh, is that the fat kid's name? I don't want to keep calling him the fat
Char-
kid.
Charlie.
Daryl's the fat
Daryl
kid.
and Charlie.
So
are the
he,
other two
yeah,
characters.
right. So this other kid doesn't really know our two leads. Excuse me, like they had met.
Because he's in middle school.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's also older.
He's got. A
Oh, I
sweet
thought he was in a
sneaker
different
phone, too.
district or something. Okay. So like
Joe.
he, did anybody know, what did you just say, Joe?
He had a sweet sneaker phone.
Oh, that's literally all I was gonna say was, did anybody notice that when he called him, he had a sneaker phone? I thought that was amazing.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I just want to say she got her own personal phone line for her birthday, and I got my own phone line for my
Yep.
birthday. So the baby, I was
Same.
like, oh.
We got it for Christmas one year. My
This
sister
year,
and I.
CC,
had
or-
it-
Yes.
had it
I never got
What?
my own. I never
This year,
got.
CC, or
Yes, this year I got my own phone
I
line.
just, to someone who grew up with a cell phone, how weird is it to imagine a world where someone else picks up a phone and it shares a line and you're both on the
No,
phone at the
but I
same
mean,
time?
Oh,
Did you
God.
grow like you didn't really grow up with a cell phone? I didn't get a cell phone until I was 18.
No, I
so
know.
I
I
was
was get
in-
one until I was 19.
I was in
Yeah, so,
college.
like,
yeah.
I still remember like my brother being on the phone when like my friends or like a boy would call me and him saying like super annoying shit the entire
Oh
time.
no, like
or,
I cracked up at
you
the
know.
old, the older
Yeah, or
brother,
call waiting.
like the older brother screaming at her to get the f off the phone, like that.
Yeah,
That rang
exactly.
pretty true for
God.
me. I did. Yeah, we never got a second line, but I once on my own called the. My mom told me it was too expensive to get a second line, so I called the phone company to see how much it would be, and then I was like, oh yeah, that's actually pretty expensive.
That's,
Oh yeah.
that's the most Eric
Yeah.
story.
So I don't know that we need to like totally, because we're kind of coming to the close to the end here. I don't know that we need to totally detail the end, but there's a confrontation. The other friend sort of snaps, and they all sort of have this big confrontation. I thought that scene was just very intense and kind of gut wrenching, but
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm kind of more interested in this like final scene where we're back at the school and it's the spring now, so it's a few months, and this is a spoiler obviously. The girl kind of main lead, she's in the classroom and she has scars in the back of her neck where she had kind of been attacked. But I just find it really interesting and seems intentional, like the fact that she's the final shot of the movie. Is really interesting to me. Like it says you don't see him, right? So it says something bad probably happened to him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's definitely intentionally left ambiguous, right? Because that's that. I thought it was really effective because of exactly what you're describing, which is like, it's kind of it is visually showing you that things are quote unquote back to normal, but they're not, because you can see these huge scars on her neck. It's definitely it's not that it's non-narrative, but it is not giving you any sort of
It's
like
a
narrative
distinct,
closure.
yeah. So like,
Okay.
here's what I keep thinking: it's got to be intentional. I feel like, and I just keep thinking,
Well, it's
in
definitely
a normal
intentional.
movie, you spend the whole movie with this guy, and so you want to know if he's alive or not. But like, him ending on her is maybe telling me that the story is maybe about something else. Like, if the story is about, like, I just keep coming back to the idea of like puberty being and sort of what it does to you and sort of like surviving puberty, if that makes sense, right? Because like when you're in puberty, you're just a stupid decision machine, and that's what happens throughout this entire movie. And so like there, I just almost had this thought of like her surviving their puberty or just puberty in general. And if you think of like, if like, even if though he's alive, let's assume that his life was basically ruined, that kind of does make her like the only survivor in a way.
Well,
Well,
yeah, I mean, it's just
Yeah.
like it shows you the far-reaching consequences of a seemingly super intimate decision. I mean, the decision was between these three kids that, had this thing happen to them, and somebody who wasn't even there is going to live with
The
this
like ripple,
consequence for the
yeah,
rest of her life.
the ripple effects, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing to just tie it somewhat back to where we started, like the end of the film. I mean, Eric, you said like it felt intentional. It's definitely intentional. I think. Yeah, I mean, obviously, the director displays throughout the film a really strong sense of sort of where he wants this film to go and what he wants to show. I think also when you think about the way that the film starts, and Cece spoke about it a little bit, like it's a really kind of weird scene that you open this movie on, where and because we didn't even, I mean, to describe it in full, and I'll try to be brief, Joe, but you actually open with this broken window, and it almost is this desolate post-apocalyptic view. You see this blood in the hallway on the floor in the school, and eventually you get to the cafeteria and you see, oh, there's actually people around, and it's an animal that's caused all this damage. And then they have this sort of like really graphic kind of putting down of this animal.
Yeah.
I think Eric kind of summed it up really well about sort of what that could be a visual metaphor for. But then to circle back around in the end, and they kind of end on another one of these fairly ambiguous and open to interpretation kind of shots that I mean, it's in a lot of ways what really makes this film for me, and because like it really is a very assured way of opening and closing. I mean,
Yeah.
this director, it's his first movie, which is really incredible.
It's wild,
and,
yeah.
I think the overall point is that puberty is a dead moose. I think is what I
But
gather from this movie.
I'm wrestling with like what we should read into the fact that the cops stomped the moose to death, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Because
It's
that's
weird,
like
yeah.
a pretty graphic thing when you think about it.
I was going to say that's
Maybe
more
that's
of
what
a,
happened to
a
Zach.
statement. Yeah.
Mhm.
He gets
Well, I mean,
stomped
it
out
kind
by
of,
the
I mean,
adults.
it does. I mean, if you want a connective metaphor, you see, and Eric kind of talked about this in email, you have this wild animal who basically, finds himself in a school somewhere he doesn't belong, which Zach ends up in a place that he definitely does not belong, i.e. in school again. And the only way that like anything can change is for this kid to be met with violent ends. And we see the beginning shot has the cops putting down this moose, and the end shot is the cops, or not end shot, but the second to end shot is literally the cops coming and breaking up this climactic. I haven't even been drinking tonight. The scene between Zach and oh my god, Zach and whatever his name is.
Josh.
I shouldn't have looked at the chat when I was talking either. But I mean, I think that it was a very clever and well-intentioned metaphor on the director's part to begin and end his movie that way.
Yeah, I mean, even too, I think on an even simpler level of just like the parallel between this raging out of control beast and these like kids in the heat of puberty, right? Like, and
Right.
literally what happens to this fucking deer is it runs through the window and like maims itself, and the kids basically kind of end up doing the same thing in a way.
Right.
But again, like just to Schnars' point, it's such a confident film. You never feel like he doesn't know exactly what he's trying to accomplish in any given frame, and I think that's that's interesting. All right,
Yeah.
Super Dark Times. Would you recommend this, Joe?
Yeah, absolutely.
Casey,
Absolutely.
Mark,
Yes, it's a great uplifting holiday watch.
Schnars,
Yeah, I'm with everyone.
Cece.
Yeah. Yes, I agree.
I gotta say, as somebody that's already been watching a lot of '90s wrestling, it was a little weird for this to be like so tuned to that time. So there you go. I highly recommend this movie. Obviously, 6 thumbs up from the Bloody Good Horror crew. That might be a first. I'm not sure. Let's take a quick break and do some fan mail.
She is seductive. She is passionate. She is Christine, a 1958 Plymouth Fury with a taste for blood. Nothing you can do can stop her. Because how do you kill something that can't possibly be alive? Christine, Body by Plymouth, Soul by Satan, rated R. Watch out for her soon at a theater near you.
Hi, I'm Ed Sanchez, co-writer and co-director of the Blair Witch Project, among other things, and you're listening to Bloody Good Horror.
Send your emails to info@bloodygoodhorror.com or hit us up on Twitter at BGHorror with the hashtag AskBGH. And don't forget to pick up back episodes of the show at podcast.bloodygoodhorror.com.
And we are back. Body by Plymouth, Soul by Satan.
Amazing.
Fucking brilliant. Somebody did not get paid enough money to write that.
Having grown up in a town called Plymouth, I could tell you this is a Body by Plymouth.
So we went a little long, but it's okay because there's no fan mail. Hey, we do,
No
though.
fan mail.
Schnars just sent us a high school picture that we're about to put into the video here. I'm going to put it actually next to this picture that I just remembered has been up the entire episode of the kid from Stranger Things. And you tell me if you can spot the difference, because I can't.
I mean, I think we could spend some time talking about the fact that John doesn't age and what,
Yeah, whoever
What is
said that's
that
a
about?
picture of me, right?
what strange sort of human blood and cognac
doesn't look
combination
that
he's
It's,
drinking.
you know, it's that Scandinavian diet and a little Norse blood magic.
My facial hair grows in like 3 other spots now, so that's an improvement. But otherwise,
You should
yeah.
see his ass beard.
No, there's no ass beard. It's smooth as a baby's bottom. I'm,
Yeah, we
I'm
saw
sure
it
of
through
it.
the fireplace in Milwaukee.
pressing his steamed hams up against the window.
I'm definitely glad I was in the other house now.
Yeah, there was literally, you could see through the fireplace into Schnars'
I mean,
room. It was glorious.
I remember that part, but talking about placing steamed hams up against the glass, like, I'm glad I was only there during the day.
I am still eating those oat bars that you made us buy before, John. Like,
You're welcome. I mean, listen.
Joe, are you saying that a little piece of the tenure is going to make it into 2018?
hey, based on no, there's still an entire case of water sitting in the back of my car.
Yeah, well, I'm still eating that giant ass package of red Solo cups you guys bought.
And God knows how many T-shirts because John refuses to
I
figure out
went
how to put them up
I
on
went to
site.
the airport.
All right.
I went to the airport that day, and like I didn't think I was hungry because my stomach was just a mess from all the liquor. But I was like, you know what? I feel like I need to eat something before this flight because it was like kind of lunchtime, and I had this like just disgusting salad from Chili's that was probably like 3,000 calories. It was like all ranch dressing and cheese and like chicken. It was pretty good, but
That had to go great with the brown Jamba juice you drank that morning.
Ugh.
good stuff.
Brown Jamba juice and chili salad. I can't think
It
of
started
anything more
out green.
appetizing.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Listen, man, I do what I can when I'm in a foreign place.
Like Milwaukee.
Yeah. It's very foreign.
Cool.
Who's giving me Twitter?
I will. So I'm a little bummed that I missed I didn't get the chance to read the 90s blowing a load on me tweet, but here we are.
I mean, you just said it again, so.
Yeah, there you go. This first one's from Library O Congress, episode 234. Mark, God, I wish I had that fucking thing from Men in Black that wipes people's memories so that you guys would forget Limp Bizkit ever existed. I'm guessing that was a sing off.
Yeah.
So come and get it.
Rolling.
Okay. Next one is from Dilly D. Williams. Joe, whatever. Yeah, all right. This movie made me hate boobs. There you go. Episode 139, Paranormal Activity 2. Joe complaining about too many cleavage shots.
Oh, dude, that's funny. That's the second of those I recently from that episode about us talking about them with the cleavage in the pool.
There was a weirdly pervy streak about that movie. If I
See,
remember.
we are cultured.
Yeah, something like that.
Hashtag get a daughter.
Yeah. Last one for BGH Classics. And by the way, I should have mentioned this. If you are a patron, patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror, and you're listening to a back episode, tweet it with the hashtag BGH Classics, and we'll read it. This last one's from that Baseball Joe. We all dread Mark's "Wake Up White People" speech. That was a quote from Joe from the Krampus episode. I have no idea what that was in reference to.
The context of that be, but amazing.
Yeah, I don't know. But that's the thing. These don't have context, so that's what makes them even better. We also use the hashtag AskBGH. If you have a question, tweet it with AskBGH, and we will answer it. Related to the BGH Classics is also from Library O Congress. A British Limp Bizkit tribute band just retweeted Mark's BGH Classic quote about Limp Bizkit. Any thoughts on this development?
Fucking British Limp Bizkit tribute band. Those are three things that I never thought I'd hear together.
Give me something to break, governor.
Something to break with your chainsaws.
A chainsaw.
I pack a chainsaw in it. I'll give your ass roll. Governor. True.
I picture it being
Jesus
more like
Christ.
a trashy British accent. I don't know if that's in your. Yeah, I don't know if that's in
That's
your.
gonna challenge Joe's
in your-
accenting. Go ahead,
In
Joe.
your ouvroir, Joe.
No, it'll be exactly the same. Or it'll be Russian for no apparent reason.
What I've
Oh,
read
shit.
about Britain lately, Schnars or Joe, it seems more of like that accent than the one you're doing. You're doing like
Yeah.
Mary Poppins.
Yeah. It is the holidays.
It's Joe's chimney sweep accent. Okay, next one is from Skizbot. I understand he's having a hard time dealing with the murder and all that, but was anyone else totally dying inside of the kid who was completely fucking it up with the chick who was totally into him?
It was rough to watch.
The like her trying to kiss him thing and him not being able to do it. That was a little brutal. But again, like, I don't know, he was kind of going through a lot, and I think that I think that even that awkwardness, like, not that, I don't know, it just felt real.
Yeah, no, agreed. Again, I think it was the acting. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it was very
pulled that off.
endearing.
All the kids in this movie are so good. Yeah.
Yeah, even maybe most of all the Daryl, the like,
Yeah.
like, I mean, you can write that character down on
It
paper,
almost seemed
but
like
to
he
pull it
wasn't.
off-
It almost seemed like he wasn't acting. Like he was just hanging out at the production, annoying people, and they just filmed it.
They found that kid, and they're like, "Look, so you want me to act? No, just show up."
It was
and,
kind of like a Jay and Silent
you're-
Bob situation. Like they just,
That's actually kind of
Oh, it's
hilarious.
so
Like
He
you
just
think
plays
of him,
himself.
like, storming back into the shot after they told him to go away.
hey, why don't you go fuck yourself?
Or they
Oh
just
my
tell them they're
God.
making a documentary about swords.
Nah, he was great. That was
Yeah.
really wild.
All right. Next one is also from Skizbot. Who is the loneliest superhero? I think Bruce Banner / Hulk would top the list.
Only if he's got his exit music.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. That music was so sad.
Yep.
Wolverine seems pretty lonely, even when
No,
there's
Ben
people
Affleck.
around.
I mean, lonely or just alone? Because I mean, isn't Dr. Manhattan like? Didn't he build a whole planet for himself?
No,
That's
he
fair.
just hit out on a planet by himself.
I mean,
Oh,
isn't
Big difference.
Batman isn't Batman pretty lonely?
Yeah, but he's getting some. Like, I
He's-
mean,
yeah,
he
he's a
obviously
womanizer.
has people around him.
He's got
yeah.
Alfred too. Him and
Yes,
Alfred
but
are
his
pretty.
soul is empty. He's alone on the inside.
Sure. Him and Alfred are pretty tight.
That's very true.
But I feel like you could say that about almost any superhero,
yeah.
It's kind of a trope at this point.
right?
Iron Man seems to have a lot of friends.
Fair. But does he, Joe? Has he ever truly connected with his fellow
I,
man?
don't know, I stopped watching those movies. They're just god awful to watch.
Okay, cool. Next one is from Nick Allman Scott. What is the best horror film that takes place in the state of New York? I'm gonna go ahead and say Jason Takes Manhattan. That was my editorial. I
Chud.
added.
All right.
Chud's
The
pretty
correct
good.
answer is Gremlins 2, the new batch,
Gremlin- dude.
starring one John Glover, who
I
played
l-
Daniel Camp, born in Kingston, New York.
Wow, bringing it up full
Call
circle.
back.
No, I
Nice.
really, as long as we're talking about 90s, I love Gremlins too.
Yeah.
Yes.
I do love those old, like Chud you mentioned, and like Basket Case, like those like 70s, 80s, like New York City, where it's like super scummy. Like
Yeah.
I think those are a lot of fun to go back
Definitely.
and watch.
I think is Maniac set in New York City, Schnorrs?
Yeah, it could.
The original?
Yeah. Or no, wait. I'm thinking of Maniac Cop, maybe.
No,
I don't know.
Maniac Cop is the best.
Yeah, I don't know.
He's a
We can
cop.
Only there was some place that would tell us this
I
information.
know.
He's a
we can look
cop
this
who's
up.
a maniac, John.
I've heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, Maniac is New York City.
Maniac.
Nice. Da-da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah, no great new New York horror movies. It's all the ones when New York City was like incredibly scummy.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I feel like that would be tough nowadays.
The Roommate. Wait, no. What was that one called? With the. It was like the one where. Oh God, what's that Beardo guy's name? And he ends up being like a psychopath who's like trying to kill that lady.
I think that was the room.
Was it the
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Like The Tenant or something?
The Tenant.
Tenant. That was
could've
it.
been.
It was
There
with that
wa-
guy that
we
looks like
did-
Javier Bardem.
We did do a shitty movie called The Roommate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it wasn't that. It's not the Tenant either. The Tenant's the
Oh, that's
what's
an
his
old
name?
movie.
Roman Polanski movie.
Is it Javier Bardem? Javier
No,
Bardem?
it's not Javier Bardem. It's
Joe, can you
That's
keep
that guy
trying?
that looks like him, right?
Joe, can
yeah,
you keep?
yeah, yeah.
Joe, can you keep trying to say that until you get it right?
Javier Bardem.
Actually, I want Joe to.
Did,
I want
did I
Joe
get
to
it this time?
spell it.
Joe, the way you
Javier
say that,
Bardem.
Joe, is like it was recorded on a cassette tape that then got warped in the backseat of your car in the sun.
Just to be
Javier
fair,
Bardem.
Joe thinks his
This-
name is Harvey R. Bardem.
Bardem.
Javier Bardem.
Guys,
Fir-
this is gonna
first
drive
name-
me crazy.
First name Harvey, middle initial R, last
I'm
name
gonna look
Bardem.
through my beer picks because it's definitely in there. Why
Also
don't you
kind of
check
reminds me.
your list of words, John?
It kind of reminds me of
It's
Halloween.
all up here, Joe.
Continue.
Wait, is it? It wasn't. Was it Javier? Javier. Now you got me.
Wow.
Was
Could it be The Lodger? Is that a movie?
Was it JP or was it?
Harvey,
Sure, it wasn't
looks
Jeffrey
like-
Dean Morgan. That wasn't
Hold
it?
on.
Does he
Oh,
look
that
like-
is that's definitely the actor.
Jeffrey Dean
Alright.
Morgan.
Yeah.
Not Harvey R. Bardem.
Oh, is that the Hammer flick with Christopher Lee
Yes.
and Hilary Swank?
Now we're getting somewhere. I like that.
That's it.
Oh, yeah, I don't know what it's called. The Landlord or something, right?
Maybe.
I was close with The Lodger.
I don't.
I believe it's
Javier.
called Rent Control.
There actually
Department.
was a horror movie called The Lodger in like 2009. just
Jeffrey
for that.
Dean Morgan.
Can someone look up the name of the goddamn movie, please?
It's The
'Cause-
Resident.
Yes.
There
okay,
you
thank
go.
you. Jesus Christ, Schnorrs.
Wow. I like that we used every word
Ah.
except resident.
Listen, that took some. That was like some real.
That was great. I'm
Memory-
glad
It's
we got
called
some on this.
The Subletter. All right.
That would have been great. In any event, The Resident is not the best movie set in New York City. Just
No,
to
it's
answer
just
that question.
it's just a movie sort of set in New York City.
Jesus Christ, John. Way to hold
Wow.
on to that. That was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of you. All right, moving on. This next one's from Shiver Me Tim's 13.
The Arbor Dan.
It's a winner.
I feel like they were trying to go for an I am not a serial killer vibe minus any supernatural stuff and ended up missing the mark, or is it just me?
It's just you. What is I'm Not a
Just you.
Serial Killer again? I'm trying to remember.
That was the
with
one.
Christopher Lee.
Yeah, where the kid.
Christopher
no,
Lloyd.
Christopher Lloyd.
Lloyd.
Yeah,
Christopher
and
Lee?
Harvey R.
No, this is. I
Bardem.
think this is better than that movie is. I enjoyed it
Yeah.
more anyway.
I mean, I think I
That
get
movie
the
is super interesting, but
comparison.
this thing kept me more. I feel like
Yeah, it's very like dark and bleak, so I kind of get the comparison.
this movie's
but-
just more relatable. At some point, like that movie got so far fetched, it was a little like okay.
Agreed.
I mean, it has Christopher Lloyd in it, like Doc Brown.
Well, one's a monster movie, one's
No, that
not,
movie's
so-
kind of cool though. It definitely has its moments.
No, it was. I think we liked it a lot. All right,
I fucking
move on.
hate you so much.
We're losing Joe here. He's officially going over the edge.
Stroking out over there. For Herbier, Berderm.
Guys, important side note: Jeffrey Dean Morgan will be starring in the upcoming video game film Rampage.
Oh,
Yes.
thank God.
Nice.
Oh yeah, there's a trailer for that.
So
Mhm.
he plays not The Rock in that movie?
I think
Yeah.
he plays the gorilla.
He's
Actually,
the lizard.
they just got him in a gorilla.
You know they're
suit.
not even staying true to the story of Rampage.
I know.
What you mean, like a bunch of things? Like
No, the
smash up a
story
bunch
of
buildings?
Rampage is
Like-
that they were the three of them were scientists that took some kind of giant growth formula and they became monsters.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
because when you die, didn't you like shrink it back down into
Yes, yeah.
You
So
cover your bits.
that's not what this movie's about.
your? Oh, how dare you, Dwayne the Rock Johnson?
Bullshit.
It is amazing that the plot of Rampage was literally just completely summed up, and we were able to be like, it doesn't fit. It's not right.
Not feeling it. That
Yeah,
game is
Reese.
dope. Also
Not
terrible.
feeling it.
That game was amazing and also bad. Like if you tried to sit down and just play that game now, you'd be like, this is fucking stupid.
Funny because I was at an arcade, like a barcade situation, like one of those bar arcades, and they had no. They,
Could you explain that to
There's
me
more.
again? I don't think I understood it from the first three
Well,
descriptions you
I
gave.
didn't know if I said the name of the place.
I was
like,
at a
people would get
barcade.
it.
It's like a bar in an arcade. That's a bar in an arcade.
That's
Yeah.
called
Getting
John's Planning.
royalties on that?
It's
In
like-
any
it's like an
event, they
arcade
had a
bar.
Rampage box, and yeah, it wasn't great. I mean,
Was it
we-
old Rampage? See, Rampage
Yeah.
World Tour was pretty sweet. They like
No,
fixed,
no,
they
it-
fixed Rampage.
Now,
It was
wasn't
the old
Rampage
one.
World Tour some like 3D N64 bullshit?
I mean, it was the exact same game except it looked better and the controls were better.
Yeah, I don't think so. That's true.
Yeah, we played a bunch of World Tour back in the day.
Word up. Okay, cool. Great conversation. This next one's also from Shiver Me Tims, but it's a response to the Loneliest Superhero, and it said, "What about Deadpool?"
Hmm,
Doesn't he
I
have
don't know. He's
That
kind of
was
like a
roommate.
he's like a misanthrope, but I actually
Yeah.
think he like a lot of people like hanging out with him. Seems
Well,
like.
yeah,
and
and
he's got and TJ
got that
Miller's
bar.
characters is like BFF. So
Well, he's got a hot fiance too.
I can't imagine having to hang
Sorry,
out with
Shiver
TJ
Me
Miller.
Tims. You got a good Twitter handle, but terrible.
You
Terrible
know what, Mark? I apologize. I'm looking at video of Rampage World Tour right now, and it's like rotoscoped like claymation, and it looks amazing.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's a
Yeah.
great game. I used to play that arcade game at wherever you played recreational soccer. He's not paying-
I have
He's
never.
not paying attention.
No, I'm looking at.
response
I
to
have
that.
never played this game. That's amazing.
No response.
Yeah, I thought he was going to say I've never played recreational soccer.
He doesn't
You
even know
take
what we're
that
talking
back.
about. He's not even laughing because he
Oh,
doesn't know what we're talking about because he
He's
wasn't
out of it.
listening.
Yeah,
I'm
this
looking
is
at video of
perfect.
this game. Sweet.
Yeah, he's just staring at the fucking screen. He doesn't even know what we're talking about.
Carry on.
Jesus
Good
Christ. All
times.
right, last one. Mr. Stoner 82. How did you make it through this? Maybe it was the cold medicine, but I was asleep in the first 20 minutes. Had a cool dream about Brock Lesnar and Mega Man Armor versus Candyman and Mega Man X Armor, though. So that is a win-win.
There are
Question mark?
definitely movies like this that I watch and I'm just not there, and I zone out, and I'm like angry through the rest of the movie. Like that's
Yeah.
it's
It's
very.
also fair to like review this movie by saying don't drink cold medicine and then try to watch it.
Yeah,
That's-
that's not going to be
yeah.
a good comp.
I don't think I've ever taken sleeping pills and then just sat down and enjoyed a movie.
Yeah. I mean, I
Scrambled
have for like
porn,
15
perhaps, but
like it's all fuzzy and VHS-ish.
All right,
Oh
then
my
if
God.
it slows down a little bit, you can make it out a little better.
Your brain just starts filling in.
I
the
do have to
extra.
say,
Get it synced.
I do have to say, this scrambled porn at the beginning of this movie was like a little too clear, from what I remember.
no.
Well, no, it was
If
just.
you
it
were
was just
lucky, though-
edited. It was well edited to the point where you got to like
That's
2
true.
seconds of clarity.
If
know?
you were lucky, though, you got a station that had full audio, and then you were in business. That's all you really needed.
I still have VHS.
Did
tapes where
somebody
I just
order a
recorded.
pizza?
It's important question, but did you guys get your scrambled porn on like just a standard cable box or?
Yeah.
Channel
Yeah,
Channel
yeah.
95.
Well, because
bro.
there was a special time in the '80s when you could like get like pirated signals, right? Like by the time
Oh, yeah.
by the time I was experiencing this, that was all locked down.
See, none of our
I-
cable providers in Plymouth had that, but I had a friend whose dad had one of those the old-fashioned giant satellite dishes in his yard.
Yeah, like if you
Yeah.
had satellite,
There was a kid in our neighborhood who had the
His
same.
But
son
I'll-
knew.
Yeah.
My friend knew the exact coordinates to dial it in on the dial. To
that's
get the-
amazing, dude. I love
We're
that.
getting porn straight
There
from
was
the
also
side.
I
a
had a-
time.
Wow.
I'm pretty
I
sure
had a
there was.
buddy who had one of the descramblers, and I still remember his mother walking in on us watching Spice unscrambled.
Well, I'm pretty
Wow.
sure that like in the beginning of like before everybody had cable boxes, if you could get your hands on one, you could just get the channels because they didn't have any way to block them off. Then when they started becoming more ubiquitous, like they had ways of like stopping it at the pole or whatever where it came in.
The North Pole.
Very interesting.
Stopping it at the pole.
That's exactly the name
Let
of
me
the movie
stop
that
you
we
there.
watched.
Memories.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were good times, the 90s.
Hmm.
How about you like the
They
Clinton
were the
shot
best
that
of
we got?
times. They were the super darkest of times.
Yeah, what does anybody
was
John,
political.
do you know like what era Clinton this was? Like was that a specific like famous speech or something?
I mean, it might have been. I mean, I didn't like pick it up from the speech. It was 96, so this was first. It was basically like right before he's running for re-election.
Middle of first term, right?
Or I
Yeah.
guess it was actually the year he is running for re-election.
Oh, 96
Yeah.
was
So-
him and Dole. That's right.
Yeah, but this was like the year because like he hadn't the like scandal shit hadn't happened. So this was like height of Clinton powers for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe that was part of what he was getting at. It was like we hadn't, Slick Willie hadn't had his comeuppance yet. So
Such simple times, John.
Comeuppance.
there you go.
Interesting choice of words.
Way to end it. I love it.
2017, John. What are we doing next week?
We're gonna miss
we're
you,
counting down the top, the best, and the worst of 2017.
Yeah. This is our final regular episode of the year.
If Bye Bye Man doesn't make the bottom 3, I fucking quit this show. I just want you to know that right now.
All right, settle down.
I was considering
not-
putting
I
it in
think
my
it's
bottom
gonna
3, even
be-
though I didn't see it.
I know
Yeah.
I didn't see it, so I couldn't vote on it. Sorry.
Based on name recognition alone.
Can we have a special category of 2017 movies we're glad we didn't have to watch for the show?
Yeah.
So I can put Bye Bye Man
You know
in
what?
it.
Even if it's not, I know Schnarzy always gives me a little Eric moment where I get to rant about something that isn't on the list or something. So,
We'll dial you up.
I
don't
see-
worry.
I see you,
We'll dial
John.
you up a couple of times.
Cece,
Yes.
what are we reading for the book club?
We are currently reading the Lore of Devouring Light, and we will have a new book for January. We'll have a new list with all of the readings posted soon, as well as our 2018 book challenges.
Nice.
So go to Goodreads or the website.
And Mark, when will we start seeing the individual lists on bloodygoodhorror.com?
Great question. I'm not totally sure.
Let's shoot for Monday.
You are the person in charge of that, right?
No, I'm just the code monkey at
Can
the
we
end of
do it
the end
before
of
the
tunnel.
end of? Can we do it before the end of 2017?
Yeah, no, it will be probably early next week that you'll start to see those come up because we've extended our submission deadline.
Okay. I'll accept that answer. All right, guys.
Great.
That's going to do it for our review of Super Dark Times. Hope you enjoyed the show. I know you didn't enjoy 2017, but you know what? That's okay, guys, because we're going to get him this year. We're coming back. I can feel it. All right, guys. We will see you next week.
Adios.
See you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.